Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to the I Love You So Much YouTube channel. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let's get started with the episode. I'm so glad you were here. I read your book and it was incredible. And I'm a big reader and it's like it's up there, truly.
Well, that is just the nicest thing. I really appreciate that. I have a podcast too, and I always read everyone's books that come on my podcast.
Yes.
And it's a lot of time, especially like when you're doing all the things that you and I are doing. It's a lot of time to read a book. So I really appreciate when people actually read the book. So thank you.
I read all the time, but I read every single person who comes on the show because I just think it's important. Also, my notes for this episode, I was going over them yesterday in the plane, and I was like, I actually feel like I'm in church right now. Like, that was how moving it was. I was like, wow. But it was just
so sweet.
I have like direct quotes from you. Like, that is how passionate I am. Also, are you an Enneagram 3?
Yes.
Did you say that in there? Because I didn't know what personality types it was.
I didn't say it in there, but I'm a 3-wing 2.
Me too.
Are you
yes,
really? Okay, we're the exact same.
I was like, because I kept waiting for you to say it in the book, and then I was like, maybe I missed it. But a lot of like overachieving issues, and that is completely me. So maybe I'm like, there's like a deeper issue as to why I love the book so much.
There always is, as all these things that surface are never the real thing. But so 3-wing 2s, when they are operating badly, are really bad. Mm-hmm. And 3-wing 2s, when they are operating at their full capacity, they're Oprah and Tony Robbins.
Yes.
And like they are rocking and rolling. They will change the world. Like they do the most good, I think, of any Enneagram type. But they're the ones that can destroy themselves. Yes. And they can do it all on their own. So I've been both versions of the 3-wing 2. So I can speak to both of your versions, even though you seem like a pretty good, high achieving, good 3-wing 2 to me.
I'm like, yeah, that's what we'll say. Do you also find yourself being friends with a lot of girls that are 3-wing 2s? Yes. Mm-hmm. Every one of my friends, maybe with the exception of 2 or 3 of my closest friends, are all 3-wing 2s.
So my husband is actually a 3-wing 2 as well.
Wow, how does that work?
Which is apparently it can be the kiss of death, or it can be like the best relationships. So my husband and I have been in several different relationships. I feel like even in the same relationship together, like he was in a relationship with me in my active addiction, like years and years ago, and then through this whole process, and then now here we are, like this thriving, beautiful relationship. And so I feel like operating together, we have been the bad version of 3-wing 2 and the fantastic version of 3-wing 2. So there was an Enneagram specialist that I had on my podcast that said it can be like the most amazing thing, though. If you're both aligned, and if you're both like the good versions of it, that it can be amazing. So that is right now.
No, that is also just like a 3-wing 2 to like find another 3-wing 2.
Yeah.
Like, it's not shocking. That is what I think I need to figure out. There needs to be like a dating app,
Enneagram
dating app, like that. I mean, I don't think
be good.
I don't necessarily think the person that I'm looking for would be on the app, but I think in theory it would do good.
I think that in general, the dating world has shifted so drastically, in my opinion, not necessarily in the best direction.
Do you feel bad for me? You should.
I feel bad for you. I do, because I met my husband in a coffee shop. Oh my God. Like, I sat by him, you know?
People would kill for that these days.
Yes, and I hate that. I love social media. Social media is a huge part of my career, as it is yours too. So we see all the great things of social media. But I also see that you can judge people really fast, and a lot of times people are not like they are on social media.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing in the world when it comes to a relationship. If you see something on the outside and they're a totally different person. But like, I saw my goofy husband sitting down at the coffee shop with his like number 2 pencil, like doing this thing for work, and I mean, I saw who he was. Like, it wasn't like a swipe left or right thing. It was just, it's very pure, and that pureness is not there anymore.
No, it's really not.
And I hate it for you guys, but
yeah,
people are still getting married and engaged and making it work.
At some point, I'm like, I have like no interest in dating, which is so
very
convenient.
Young.
So convenient at this point in time, but I do worry for when I'm like, all right, I think I'm like ready to do it, that I'm like, where am I ever going to meet someone?
Well, I didn't get engaged and I didn't get married until I was in my early 30s. So I got married at 31, had a baby at 32, 33, 36. I'm about to have this one. And I think the biggest recommendation I can give to young people is like, wait until you find the right person. If I had married any of the people that I had met and been with in my 20s, I don't know what my life would look like today. And I think so many people want the marriage more than they want the relationship. And I think like so many things in life, you think things are going to be a certain way. And there's no more important decision that you will make in your entire life than who you marry. And if you do not marry the right person and take the time to marry the right person, you are signing up for like a whole different life. So I hope that, I know you have a lot of young people that listen to this, so I hope that these single people don't get too antsy or too burnt out on these apps to wait for the right person. I think that the right people are still out there. You just got to go about a little different way to find them.
Yeah, I agree. That's really great advice. I don't really want to get married until I'm 30 anyway, so it's nice. But even if I were still I'm 24, turning 25 this summer.
You are so young.
But this is what I tell everyone around me who's like trying to pressure me into dating. But if I was dating even the people that I have dated in my 20s so far, in like with all I'd probably be miserable and I wouldn't be the same person. Mm-hmm. And I think from that, I've just grown so independent. I love my own company and I just love the life that I've built, that the thought of someone coming into my life, just like, I guess they would have to really add value for me to, but now I'm like, I'm so happy here that like that sounds like a lot and it's too much for me.
Yes, but any relationship should make you better. You shouldn't just have a relationship to like have a relationship. You don't have to check that box off in life. Like you're meant to have a relationship that adds value to your life. And people forget that and they think, oh, I'm not super happy, but like we're working through things. If you're already working through things and it's like the very beginning, I'm sorry to tell you, like there are certain things that you can change, like aspects of the relationship. I had an active addiction problem, like, obviously that's an aspect of my relationship that made it tumultuous in the beginning. But once that was removed, it was like this perfect relationship. There weren't deep-seated issues. And if there are in the beginning, like remember, it certain things can get better, but certain things are innate.
Very true. Very good advice. Okay, I have about 17 quotes from your book, so we'll see where we want to start. Best. I just absolutely loved it. I also think they say a lot of the time for an Enneagram 3, this is the last time I'll mention it, the innate fear is failure. Mm-hmm. And I think that is probably a fear of mine, but I think I outwork it so much that it's not even my first fear because it's like, it's so deeply rooted that I can't even get there because I'm just like working too much. Not working too much. I've actually worked on this the past few years. I'm definitely better than I was. But I think my fear personally is living a mediocre life. Mm-hmm. And so I love what you said. It's like you will never find joy in a life you didn't choose. Mm-hmm. We talk all the time on this podcast about navigating your 20s. That is like a hot topic. And everyone is so confused. And for some reason, people just like don't really talk about it as much as you would think that they would. And I just see like my friends around me constantly like unhappy or maybe not like fulfilled in their jobs or in certain relationships. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the time people just like we all just let life happen to us. Mm-hmm. So if someone is in a position where they're just not happy or fulfilled and they're kind of not choosing the life that they're living, they're just choosing maybe what other people they think are expecting of them or the weird like societal expectations. What advice would you give for someone who's trying to kind of break out of that?
Yeah, so the quote that you are talking about in the book, it's something that my dad taught us from an early age. My dad is a lot like me in this sense of achievement. He's built this huge telecommunications company from nothing and run a family business for years that has had amazing success. But he's really good at choosing his own happiness and choosing his joy. And he's always been good at that. Even as a young person, he was good at that. So he always said to us, like growing up, he always said, if you don't choose what makes you happy, like the world will choose it for you. And I never knew what he meant by that until I lived it. And I think you're speaking right to the 20-year-olds right now because I think societal expectations and what your parents think you should do or what your friends are doing is a really big driver. And it's not necessarily one that you would think of as a negative thing. I mean, our parents want the best for us and our friends might be happy in that life. But if you get to a point in your life where you have happened upon something that all of your friends are doing, or maybe you're in the career that you spent a really long time in school studying to do and you really thought you'd be happy doing it, I want those people to take a second and assess their lives. We're moving, especially people like you and I are moving 150 miles an hour in life. And if you don't take a moment to say, am I actually happy here now that I've arrived? you will just keep on living and like you'll stay on a hamster wheel and you'll never find true fulfillment. So I would say to those people, stop what you're doing right now. If you're listening to this podcast, I believe that people hear the things that they're meant to hear. So I believe that you're meant to hear this right now, that you and I are talking about. Stop what you're doing and think, are you fulfilled in this relationship, in this job, on this career path? And if you're not, there is a lot of fear of changing, especially changing something that you've put a lot of work or time or effort into, or that you always thought you would do. But I will go ahead and tell you an unfulfilled life is 10 times worse than the strength you'll have to find and the fear and the people you'll have to face to reroute your journey. And it doesn't have to be like some throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to change every single thing in your life, but you do need to assess, especially those big things, and say, am I happy in this? And that takes pausing and thinking about, and truly thinking about it. So that's what I would say to those people, is take a second and think, like, are you happy here in this, doing this, on your way to this? It's really important.
When I kind of had a moment realizing probably around a year and a half ago, when I was in one of the worst times ever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we all were in a bad time, but like personally outside of the world, I sat there and I was like, I'm really actually not happy in everything in my life that I thought I wanted. Not everything, but a lot of the things that I thought I wanted are not. I was going through a breakup, which is something that I like didn't expect. You expect it, you don't expect it kind of thing.
Oh, the curveballs. I wrote the whole chapter on it,
Exactly.
The last chapter.
Exactly. Yes. And I was sitting there and I was like, okay, what I realized from that breakup, on top of so many other things that were happening in that time that like led to a ton of change in my life, was that I wasn't actually afraid of losing the person. Like I actually didn't even want to be with him. I was afraid of the fear and also having to admit to myself that like I was going 100 miles an hour towards a life I didn't want. Mm-hmm. And I was way more afraid of having to deal with changing that than I was of, obviously, I think it's easier to stay where you're at. Mm-hmm. Another thing I did, like practically speaking, that did help me during that time, I've talked about this. Do you do morning pages ever? Do you know what that is? Okay, so it's journaling. So I feel like for years, I just kind of pushed down my emotions and I didn't listen to any of them. And I got to the point where I couldn't hear myself and I didn't understand like I didn't know where certain emotions were coming from. And so my therapist started having me do morning pages. So essentially, people do it different ways, but the way I do it is I'll open a journal when I wake up and I write for 3 pages straight. But the thing is, you don't take your like pen off the paper. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I was writing and I was forced to keep writing, and then it gets, sometimes you're literally.
It's the subconscious mind.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you're like, I am writing because I have to finish this. Like it's really not that deep. But I found there were so many things that were just like subconsciously there that I didn't realize. And that itself, like journaling, has really changed my life. Like that made the biggest difference for me. So it's like reading things like your book. I wish I would have read that then. Obviously it wasn't out then. But I just think that for me, journaling, especially when you're someone who like wants to keep going 24/7, was actually like really healthy.
Yes. Journaling helps you with your awareness. It helps you to take a pause. And you being a 3-wing 2 and someone that's very active, you have to have an active thing that's helping you take a pause. I understand because I'm you. So I understand that. And also, like, as it's later in life, you're going to see when you're in your 30s one day and you've got however many kids you end up having, you can't wake up and do the morning pages.
That's what I'm stressed about. This is
okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you that there are different times in your life where taking a moment to pause and reassess things is going to look different. And you know what's so wonderful about being in your 20s, being pre your forever career or on your way or in the beginning of it, pre-marriage and pre-kids, all of those things are the golden age of life, truly. Like you are in for the people say like your youth is the best part of your life. I think like early family is just nothing is better than that. And like you're on your way to that. And what's really wonderful about 20-something-year-olds now and young people is that, you know, when I was a 20-something-year-old, I was in the beginning of this book, you know, so you read, I was spiraling out of control. I almost died. I basically walk off the stage of the Miss America pageant and reality TV and all of these amazing things. I'd reached the pinnacle of all the success that I'd wanted. And then I end up in rehab, and I didn't even do the type of drugs that I thought people ended up in treatment centers for. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because when you can take time to assess your life and the direction that you want your life to go in, before it gets to be, I don't want to say too late, because it's never too late to change things. But it certainly is much harder to change things once you have kids in the picture, once you're in a forever career, once you're married. So all of these 20-year-olds and young 30-year-olds or teens, whoever the young people are, or the set in stone life people that are listening to this podcast, you are in such an amazing time in your life. And if you can just be intentional, like the trend has been for people your age, to be more intentional, to talk about their feelings, it is going to do nothing but this is the runway that you're about to take off to the most amazing life. And if you can just chart your course correctly and be in the right state of mind and the right place in your life, it can be so powerful. Now, I want to say a word of caution, because there are a lot of young people right now that have gotten into the field that I'm in, and the field, that you're in too, that I used to go around and talk whenever I was 24 and 25. I was Miss Kentucky. I spoke to, hundreds of schools in the year that I was reigning. And I used to speak on my version of living fully back then. And you don't know what you don't know, Mm-hmm. So I thought that the hard things that I'd been through in my life had really taught me the lessons that I needed to know. And I spoke on those things. I didn't know any different. And it was a great speech. It really connected to a lot of people. But it wasn't until I went through what I went through that I was like, oh my gosh, this is the stuff. This is the stuff that is going to make my life truly full and different for the rest of it. And so I think a lot of 20-year-olds right now, it's like, oh gosh, things have been so bad. I've experienced all this stuff. And maybe they have, but I really encourage them to get a shovel out and try and get to the bottom of it before you get to the big things in life. If you have the time, which you think you're the busiest person in the world when you're 25. I thought I was the busiest person in the world. And now looking back, I'm like, what did I do?
Yes.
What did I even do? Now I don't have 1 second in the day and I'm like, man, I really thought I was busy and I really could have had a lot of time to figure some of these things out. So I just want to give a lot of encouragement to young people, because it's prime time to figure this kind of stuff out. And that you're a very good example of that as a 20-something-year-old person who's talking about it, who's done it, who will continue to do it. And I think it's a really great thing that there are podcasts and TikTok and all these things where young people are sharing their experiences of figuring life out, because it's a lot to figure out sometimes.
What I say to myself, as my reasoning for, not even reasoning, I think I use it as an excuse to make a decision, but I have the least amount of responsibility I'll ever have. And then I tell that to my friends all the time who are unhappy in their jobs. And I'm like, if you want to make a change, it's not that any change is easy, but it's the easiest time, in my opinion, to do it.
It kind of easy though, especially when you're unattached.
Yes.
It is the easiest time. So there's no excuse not to do it, really. Mm-hmm. You have to take into consideration the things like paying your bills, and the things that are going to come along with a career shift or whatever it is that you want to change. But you also have not lived in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I'm here to tell you, as a person that's lived in 20s and 30s, it does get harder to shift paths, but it's not impossible. But if you don't shift paths when things are easy and you're unattached, you're probably going to be a person that's just really going to live life as life comes to you. And I don't believe that is a path to true fulfillment and living fully. I think that, yes, ride the waves of life, and I think take the opportunities and don't get dead set on one thing. But I also think that deciding what makes you happy, reassessing what makes you happy, thinking about is this the life that I want to live? Do I feel good in it? We're not going to feel good all the time, but do I feel good in it? Does this feel right? And making changes when you need to make changes. I think that's the way to true fulfillment, and to go back to the original question, not leading a mediocre life. A mediocre life is someone that wants comfort and ease. And I think that comfort and ease are the enemy of fulfillment. And unfortunately, now, this day and age, and probably social media has something to do with it because we only see the good stuff. I believe that people value like life being comfortable and easy. They don't want to strike a nerve. They don't want really to experience pain. That they would sometimes rather a comfortable life than they would a full one that's full of true fulfillment. Because one that is really vibrant is one where you're going to really experience lows. You're going to suffer. There are going to be things that you have to walk through. And as a person who used to numb everything out and it was comfort and ease, and as a person who's lived on the other side of it, I can tell you that the life on the other side of it is, there's just no comparison. And I would hate for someone to go through life not realizing that when you're avoiding pain, like you should be more afraid of avoiding this full life that will include pain. I believe that so many people are so fearful of experiencing things that are going to cause them pain that they'll just keep doing the same things over and over. And it's just it's a shame. I used to live that way.
You asked this question, one of my quotes in the book. Why am I so fearful of adversity when it seems that every person I admire was literally built from it? I have a whole section on here on pain avoidance. Now I'm in therapy, but I'm like, I think it's the normal. I think I'm looking for human tendency. I think it's a human tendency to avoid pain. Mm-hmm. But it was so interesting you saying that, because that is so true. Or anyone that you really connect with, it's always, in my opinion, on a level of like vulnerability. Yeah. So it is so interesting that we avoid pain so much, but then we admire those who have really mm-hmm. dealt with it and who speak to it, you know?
Yeah, it's wild. It's one of those awareness things, because sometimes the things that are actually the reality, whenever you think about them like that, it's like, oh, duh, then I'll be fine facing these things, this adversity that comes my way. And then it comes your way and you just say, oh, but I would rather not. Like, I would rather just, numb it out or like scoot on by it, because we don't want to experience the pain. Maybe it's a little bit of pain. Maybe it's a lot of pain. That whole chapter that you're talking about, I wrote when I was home in Kentucky. I grew up on this farm with 23 first cousins. I'm the oldest of all of them. And my grandpa, my grandparents still live in the center of the farm. And he is just like the ideal person. I know so many people think this about their grandparents and that whole generation. And when I thought about his life that weekend, and I was like, what makes him so amazing? Like, what is it? And I was thinking about these things. And I said to him, I was over there and I was like, I'm going to write a chapter on this. And I ended up writing this chapter in 30 minutes. And the chapter that's in the book is the chapter that like I wrote straight through. There's hardly any edits to that chapter. I feel like I was very divinely led in that chapter. But I went about it in a way of, I'm going to figure out what it is that he tells me to do so I can be like him. And I said, Papa, because he was born, his mother was married at 12 back in Kentucky. Like, it was like a thing, which is just crazy. She had him at 14. He was a 13-pound baby. That was her second child.
Oh my gosh.
He watched his dad like run into a burning house to save their family's guns, and watched him die right in front of him. Watched his sister die right in front of him. She pushed him off a bike, and she didn't make it, and he did. He is born of so much pain. And so I asked him that weekend, I said, how did you get through all the hard things that happened in your life? And he looked at me and he said, we didn't have any hard things happen. We had a good life. And it made me realize that generation and certain people, they don't see the things that happen to them in life as these just things that life-ending things. It's just their life. Like, who wants to experience these hard things in our life? And maybe even people listening to this will never experience anything to that level, but maybe you will. And the fact that he just accepted life, like just as life was, I said, it's like they made a wedding vow to life. Like, I'll take you life, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, like I'll honor you. And they do. They just honor their lives. And I just started thinking about it. And I started thinking, like, I want to live from this day forward, not in avoidance of pain, but in avoidance of, I don't remember exactly how I put it, but like a life that often in avoidance of missing out on a life that often includes it. And, when you look at even people that everybody on this podcast knows who they are, like Oprah, or like a Tony Robbins, or like I'm trying to think of people like your generation. Who are the people, like the self-help people that you guys look up to?
I'm like Oprah. You know, actually, Jenny Allen's book.
I love Jenny Allen. They've all experienced deep adversity. Not like, oh, I didn't make this list, or not, I didn't get into college, but life-shattering things. And they made it through it. And it's not only like I wrote this in that chapter. It's not like I made it through it, but like I was made through this. This made me the person that I am. So when adversity comes my way in life, and it always does, I now at the cusp of it know and am prepared to learn something in my life to be altered in a really special and powerful way. Because it always happens.
You also talk about like unhealthy attachments. And for you, it's the story of like your hair. I think that we can grow unhealthily attached to anything. And oftentimes, unless it's drugs or alcohol, you don't think that you have an unhealthy attachment or addiction, whatever it might be. So I think that story is so powerful. But what do you think about people in their 20s and having unhealthy attachments? Like, do you think it's the new thing is like social media and people's like almost, I hate the like personal brand, but I mean like what people think of them to a new extreme.
Yes, I do. So I went to treatment in the beginning of this book, and I was there for 5.5 months of my life. And here's the craziest thing, is that I didn't smoke marijuana. I didn't do illegal drugs. I didn't do all these things that you would think of, you know, that like half of them are legal now. You know, I didn't do the things that I thought would be the things that landed you in a treatment center. But here I was, you know, I had an addiction to prescription medication. And I was so far gone that like I almost lost my life to it. But also they kept me there for like 5.5 months. But while I was there for 5.5 months, it's never the substance abuse or whatever it is that like surfaces. It's never the problem. It's always what's underneath. So I'd been there for about, 6 weeks or 2 months. And I had long blonde hair extensions for 10 years of my life. And I know you and I are staring at each other across the table, and we both got long blonde hair extensions. And now mine are removable, but yours is probably your real hair because...
No, I actuly have extensions right now.
Well, it looks good.
I normally don't, but I lost half my hair to COVID, so,
shoot.
Yeah.
Oh, COVID hair loss. So they sent me to like a beauty salon there, like locally, close to the treatment center. And they said, we're going to let you get your hair done. And I was like, yes, awesome.
So nice of you guys.
So great. I must be doing really well. I'm almost done. And they knew what they were doing in this place. They must have dealt with people that had issues in this treatment center before. So they turned my chair around, and I wasn't facing the mirror when they were taking my hair out. And, never had I gone one day without these permanent extensions for 10 years. They were really part of my identity, and I didn't even know who I was without them. And when they took that last extension out of my hair and she turned my chair around and I looked at myself in the mirror, I had a full out-of-body experience, and like my life flashed before my eyes, like I was in a car accident or something. And it was the lowest low that I'd ever hit in my entire life. Not almost dying to substance abuse, not ending up in a rehab center, it was when they took my hair out. And it was the beginning of a massive transformation in detaching from this appearance of this person that I was. I was so attached to certain things about my appearance, but I was also really attached to remaining the person that I was because I knew that person, and that person felt safe to me, even though that person almost killed me. I still wanted to be her. I was so afraid of like becoming something else, and I felt worthless and I felt disgusting, and when they took that hair out. And so I had become literally physically attached to my appearance and to remaining this person that I was, with all these accolades and with all these titles and with all of these things that I wanted you to see before you ever even saw me. And that was when my real work began there. And it's something that I even have to think about today. You can get attached to things that do not seem like bad things, but they can really inhibit your ability to live fully. Towards the end of my treatment there, I'd done so much work on my attachments. And then at the end, I've been a singer my whole life, and I was singing in this chapel service like every Sunday. And it was like 2 months before I left there. And the vice president of the whole facility was like in one of my sessions that day. And he said, and I was like, what is he doing here? I sit down with my therapist and I'm like, are they going to discharge me or what? Is he going to tell me how good I'm doing? Like, I'd kind of become a star of the treatment facility. And so I sit down and he said, Mallory, are you familiar with the mask exercise? And I was like, yeah, I've done it 3 times since I've been here. It's hanging on my wall. Would you like me to go get it? It's this whole idea of like that you're wearing a mask and addiction and like you take it off and, put it back on and there's the whole mask. And I was like, yeah, I've done that. And they also made me take my hair out and all my eyelashes and like everything. So this is what you get. He's like, okay, we're going to continue that work. You no longer will be singing at chapel on Sunday. And it was like this hot wash went through my body. And I was like livid because it was the last thing that I had that made me feel not average, not mediocre. It made me feel special. It made me feel like I could stand up on Sundays and say, you know what? I ended up in this place with all of you guys, but look at what I can still do. Like, look at my talent. And who would think that a talent or a successful business or like the way that you, like these things, who would think that that would be something that we could become unhealthily attached to? But when you have issues like I had, that was another thing that I was just using to hold up in front of me and be like, look at this shiny object and not at me. And it was something that, again, another breakthrough that I had. So I think that young people, especially because you have a constant, I didn't really have whenever I did Miss America, they didn't even have Instagram. When I did Amazing Race, like my 3rd season of Amazing Race, maybe they had Instagram, but.
Are you glad they didn't have Instagram at the time? Or do you
I used to be really sad that they didn't because I was like, I could have had millions of followers because I had like one of the highest Facebook followings, like when Facebook first came out. Like I really built social. I've always been able to build.
You're in that world, so it would have been so nice. Yeah.
But I would have had a public fallout.
True.
I would have had people following me probably for the wrong reasons because if I would have been guiding people, I would have been guiding them in the wrong direction because I hadn't experienced this stuff in my life yet. So yes and mostly no. I'm glad that they didn't have those things. But also, like if you're a person that has issues with things like this and you constantly have a judging audience, that's really going to amplify those issues for you. So I have a Miss America panel of like 8 people that are going to judge me. Like that's one thing. So I meet them one time a year. Everybody's always got the normal like family and friends, like the judgy people that are around you in your life. But now with social media, when you have people that will get on an app and look at you and assess, do I want to follow you? Do I want to like something that you do? Do I not like you? It's a constant cycle of judgment. And if you're a person who tends to judge yourself, then that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to navigate. So I just hope that young people can find a way to stand on their own 2 feet because social media is so distracting and takes up every single empty second of our entire day. So I think it robs young people of their own ability to think or like be still and like assess.
Yes.
But also like you're constantly being judged. So you're constantly judging yourself. And if you were like me back in the day, I was judging myself really hard and I didn't need anybody else to tell me. Actually, everybody on the outside was telling me I was doing a great job. But if there had been a group of people telling me I was doing a bad job, I don't know if I could have made it through that because I was crippled by people thinking that I wasn't enough.
When did you start to believe that you were enough?
At the end of my time in treatment, I realized like it was the purest version of myself that I'd ever been in my life. I was 40 pounds like overweight. I had this short cut off hair. Like here I am. I've been removed from the world for 6 months. But I'd removed all the bad, which in life to find your way to fulfillment, if you've got a flashing red flag, like addiction, or if you're in a marriage, like an affair, or you've got like some unresolved trauma in your life that you haven't worked through, if you have a red flag, there's almost no way to true contentment unless you deal with that red flag. I had to deal with that red flag. So, when I removed that though, it's like my spirit came alive again and like my soul could shine. And I removed like all the bad that was just like cluttering up the good, because I think I was and am, and most people are innately good. I just think that there's so much that we can do to cloud and override and overshadow and distract us from that. And I felt I did. I really loved the person that I was then. And that was one of the like purest versions of myself I feel like I've ever been. But also, there's a chapter in there. I used to film travel shows, and I had this travel show that I was filming in Malta, and it's called like Relight the Fireworks. And I talked about that was when my kind of addiction was spinning off the rails a little bit, and I was really spinning out of control. In that I'd just done these big things. I'm in my early 20s, and I needed something else to do, and particularly something else to do that people on the outside could see me do, because like. It was one thing for me to be, I'd had all the accolades and I'd done all the things. I was valedictorian in my class, and, I had all those like little titles that I'll like check off the list and tell to whoever I needed to tell to. But it was really amazing when I could do things like Miss America or Amazing Race or these things that everyone could watch on TV. So
you had a bigger audience.
I didn't even have to tell them about my success. They could tune into CBS and they could see it.
It was more streamlined this way.
Yes, it's much more streamlined. Much more streamlined this way. And I was looking for like my next big thing. So I did this travel show, and I filmed this travel show pilot, and I lived in this country in the Mediterranean called Malta. And I unintentionally detoxed from the medication. So I was on Adderall and Ambien were the medications that I was on, which some people need that. Like I was not ADHD diagnosed, and I only had a sleeping problem because I was on so much dang Adderall. So like my problems were not, I should not have been on that medication. I shouldn't have been ever prescribed that in the first place. And I was taking so much of it that I had to find other ways to get it. Like a 30-day period, my 30 days of medication would run out. So I go to film this show, and I can't get some sketchy doctor to help me fill a prescription early in Malta. Like they're going to be like, what? No, we don't have that here. So I came off of those medications. It was the first time that I've like detoxed, and I felt like my spirit come alive again. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I like myself like this. Like I felt like I loved myself again. And I felt like so much like disdain for myself and the failure that I felt like I was becoming and all of that whenever I was on these medications, because I was really crippled by them. And so like there were always glimmers of this self-love in my journey. And it's never something that you just find and you got it. Check it off the list and everything's good. You always have to continue to return to it, because then you're going to get to times in your life like I am right now where you have pregnancies and then you're postpartum, and you have to like learn the way that you are again and love the way that you look again when your body looks so foreign to you. And so it's always a cycle back to that. But I love my life now, and I love the place that I'm at, and the life that I live now is full of so much just pure fulfillment and contentment and joy. Just like the only word I could use to describe the way that my life feels now is vibrant. Like, and that's why I included it on the tagline of the book, like living fully, dare to step into your most vibrant life. So I don't even remember what the original question was that you asked me.
No, you answered it.
That sent me off on the vibrant tangent. But Self-love, yeah. Self-love, it's always a process. You're always going to be coming back around to it. But those are two of the times that I really felt it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say someone is listening and they're in their 20s and they're in a place where they're just very unhappy, but they don't know what to do about it, and they want to get to where you're at, but they don't know where to start. What are some tips that you would give them to kind of like maybe kickstart their journey?
So I would always remind people in their 20s, like if you're feeling discontent, I always pull this line out of the book over and over and over, because I think so many people think this way, but the absence of bad is not a qualifier for a good life. If you're looking at your life and you're saying, well, nothing's really wrong, so that means it's good. That is not the way to live your life. And I think so many people feel that way, that as long as things aren't going wrong, and as long as everyone's around them mostly happy, and as long as their bills are getting paid, that this is the good life. It's not the good life. Like, life should be not simply spent in avoidance of pain. So I want you to look at your life, and I want you to assess and say, am I just avoiding the bad? Because that's the pain avoidance that we've already talked about. And then I would say, because we've already talked about it today, it's very important in every step of living fully. Like, I wrote 17 different chapters on what living fully looked like to me at different times in my life. So different times in my life, I had to break through something different. So maybe it was just like fear, this constant fear loop. Maybe it was life threw me a curveball and I didn't know what to do next. Maybe it was like the loss of like a human being. Maybe it was a pure, full-blown addiction. There are so many different things that I've written about, and there's always something that's standing in your way. In order to figure out what that is, you can't just read a book and be like, oh, I picked number 13. You have to assess your own life. I can't look at anybody and say, this is your problem. Only you know that. So someone in their 20s, if you feel badly about the way that things are going now, you have to take a second and assess it. And you have to think, maybe you need help alongside a professional, but maybe you can do it all on your own. I don't think that people should be scared of this way of life because it's not something that you have to halt your life to do. Like, you can very much live this way alongside just living your normal life. It's just about a little bit more intentionality. So I would say take the time, maybe it's with the help of a professional or maybe it's not, like I said, to assess what are the things that are standing in your way. Is it a relationship? Is it the job that you're in? Is it an addiction? Is it you are spending 8 hours a day on Instagram? I'll go ahead and tell you, like, that is a big problem.
Yep.
What is the thing that's standing in your way? Because you can't fix what you don't know. So you have to figure that out. So those are the first 2 things I would start with.
Amazing. And everyone should read the book because it's absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
I would have brought it for the table, but I have a Kindle, so it's actually very convenient when you highlight a lot of things because it was all in one thing.
You can highlight on a Kindle?
Yes, and then there's a section for the highlights in the notes. Oh, it's very helpful.
Well, you should get a sponsorship from Kindle because you just sold one.
You were telling me. I read 100 books last year, and I'm like, I don't know how many times I can say to my Kindle, like, I just need them to love me. But anyways.
Okay, so what are your favorite books of, like, the books you read last year? Because I'm a big reader. I listen to audiobooks, actually.
So a lot of my books that I read last year were fiction.
Okay.
Because a lot
I'm
of
not
my
a fiction
stuff,
reader.
that was my thing.
I'm such a 3-wing 2 that I'm like, it's a waste of time.
That's how I felt for so long. But then I was like, okay, if I had this problem where, like, I felt like before, my problem was that, like, I just, like, worked all the time and I worked to avoid. And then I was like, well, I thought I had to be doing something productive at all times. So even when I was reading,
I
were
needed
doing
it
to be
just
doing
to be,
exactly. So then I was like, I'm gonna make myself read fiction novels. But whenever you wanna, if you ever have time, as a mother, I have great book racks. I do have good nonfiction ones, but the ones that come to mind are fiction.
Do you do manifesting and vision boards and stuff like that?
Yes.
Have you read Tara Swartz's book, The Source?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so
wait, I think this is on my list as of recently.
You need to read this book now. So people always, I love as an author, like, sharing about other books, and I believe, and I wrote in my, I'm religious, but, like, also I very much believe in manifesting and, like, the law of attraction, and I think it goes hand in hand with, like, ask and you shall receive, and it's always, I've been doing it ever since I was like 5, and I'm really good at it now. And she has transformed the way that I do vision boards and that I think of the things that I want to bring into my life. She's a neuroscientist, and she studied neuroplasticity for her whole life and the ability of the brain to truly change. So she used to work in the prison system and, like, all these places. She was a psychiatrist in the UK for years and years, and she was like, there's something to this. And the only people talking about manifesting and vision boarding and the law of attraction are woo-woo and crystally and stuff, which I also like that kind of stuff. So she was like, I'm gonna study this scientifically. And she studies, like, scientifically the way that the brain can change, the way that you can alter things, the way that you can, like, truly bring things into your life, and it's really cool. So you should read that.
I love like anything brain health wise too. So, like, I love that. Okay, perfect. Yes. I'm adding that to my list.
Yes.
Okay, so where can they find you?
So I have a website, MalloryErvin.com. That has everything. So I have merchandise. I have a YouTube channel. I also started on YouTube. I have a blog. I have a book. I have a podcast. I'm everywhere on the internet that's not sketchy. So we really, like, have everything. But Instagram is where we mainly are. So it's just Mallory Ervin, MalloryErvin. And I would love for them to come over. Anyone that reads my book, like you even just saying that you took the time to read my book, like, it means it. Nothing could mean more because it was my greatest vulnerability. And I had like 9 other businesses. I didn't need to write a book. I wrote a book truly to help people live a bigger life, like I learned to do. I didn't write it to check something off a list or to say I wrote a book. I truly wrote it for that. So I appreciate, like, anytime someone gives me a platform to reach a following that, like, may not know about it, like, it just means so much to me. Poor you and I, we had quite the journey getting here. I was like, I thought it was a Zoom interview, and she was like, no, it's in person. So I was like, okay, I'll drive there. It'll be 30 minutes. I'm like, you are so sweet and so patient. It's the first time that's ever happened.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
And especially, like, I love it that you're speaking to a young audience, because if someone's coming to a podcast like this, they're a person that's seeking a different kind of way to live.
Yeah.
And to be led and guided by someone like you that's so pretty and successful and
thank you,
well-spoken, and seems to really have stuff figured out at a young age, like, they're looking for that kind of guidance. And so to even be able to speak to your audience is really an honor, and it's very I just am very grateful to have finally made it here 45 minutes after we were supposed to start.
No, thank you.
Heart.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Everyone buy the book. It is so good.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for reading it. Thank you guys for listening.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know by giving it a nice thumbs up and subscribe for more.